GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network. The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And with that, we welcome you to Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Life Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is episode number 118. It's the Buffalo Bills versus the Cleveland Browns in Detroit. Now, before we get going here on the podcast, as always, want to remind you, you can hear us on BetterLifeThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well to stay up to date on the latest podcast. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD. My co-host, John Cimino, will be joining me later on in the podcast after our commercial break. For some reason, I couldn't think of the words there, but hey, a week from hell for the entire greater Buffalo area ends with a 31-23 victory in Detroit at Ford Field against the Cleveland Browns. Now, first off, earlier in the week, Sean McDermott announced players were popping up sick with a non-COVID related illness, so players were out of practice for that reason. And then Buffalo finds out on Thursday afternoon that the game had preemptively been moved to Detroit because of the impending snowstorm, which Orchard Park itself received over 77 inches of snow, which is absolutely mind-blowing, hard to believe, but when you see the pictures, you see the videos on TV, I just can't imagine that. The fans did come together, though. Kudos to all of the fans, all of the people of Orchard Park who came together to help dig players out, which allowed them to get to the team facility and then subsequently to the airport and then to Detroit. The NFL's PR team also pointed out that there were 56,000 tickets for the game that sold out in less than 3 hours. Absolutely amazing. But before we roll into the three big things, again, this 31-23 victory over the Cleveland Browns snaps Buffalo's two-game losing streak, kind of gets things back on the right track, which is great news for everybody in the Western New York area. Now, moving on to our three big things, brought to you by PuckLuck.com, your one-stop resource for all of your NHL sports betting action. PuckLuck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every NHL game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? PuckLuck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, PuckLuck.com is in no way affiliated with the National Hockey League. Its teams are the NHLPA. PuckLuck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. Now, our first of the three big things this week, running down the offensive stats. Josh Allen was not crazy good on Sunday. The offense started, they struggled, and then they kind of picked it up in the second half here. But Josh Allen, 18 for 27, 197 passing yards, and one touchdown with 3 rushes for 7 yards. But the most important stat this week, 0 interceptions for Josh Allen. While the offense did sputter in the red zone, which led to a record-setting day or a record-tying day for Tyler Bass, which we'll talk about here shortly, the Buffalo Bills offense was relatively unable to score touchdowns. I mean, they did have obviously the one touchdown pass from Allen to Diggs, but aside from that, they just kind of sputtered. Josh Allen now has 160 total touchdowns in his career, 124 passing, 35 rushing, and 1 receiving in his first 5 NFL seasons, tying Cam Newton for second all-time. Only Dan Marino has more with 171 total touchdowns, which honestly, that should be reachable by the end of the season for sure. It's Allen's 5th game of the season with 100-plus passer rating. He was at 100.4 last Sunday. Allen also has 3,413 combined passing and rushing yards this season. That's 2,930 passing, 483 rushing. It's the 4th highest by any NFL quarterback over a season's first 10 games. So obviously, the continued MVP chatter, it might quiet down a little recently with the losses and ineffectiveness, but Josh Allen is doing something special this season. Also, Josh Allen's career record for indoor games moves to 7-1. Now, tight end Dawson Knox had a comeback game, like you may have forgotten me, but I'm still here type of game. 7 receptions on 7 targets for 70 yards. The best performance of the season for Knox. It was a single season high for Knox in receptions, targets, and yards. His 7 receptions tie a career high, and as mentioned, very much a get-right game for Dawson Knox, which is huge for this Buffalo Bills defense that really only seems to be relying on Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs lately, once it seems like they were exposed a little bit. it seemed like they were able to get more players involved, which is very good because, as we've talked about in recent podcasts, a lot of the problems stemming from the issues offensively are Josh Allen trying to fit the ball in a tight spot where it's guaranteed to be an interception. There's no real reward and a lot of risk. So seeing Dawson Knox and seeing guys and seeing the running game again, we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Seeing those things kind of kick into gear Sunday against the Browns was very, very refreshing to see. Now, wide receiver Stephon Diggs had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 48 yards and a touchdown. A quiet game for Diggs, who wasn't targeted a whole lot, I don't think at all, in the first half. But he surpassed 1,000 receiving yards on the season, becoming the first Buffalo player to do so in the first 10 games. His 5th consecutive season with 1,000-plus rushing yards. He's the 4th Bill with 3 1,000 receiving yards seasons, joining Andre Reed, Eric Moulds, who had 4, Stevie Johnson, who had 3. Now, Diggs also joined Stevie Johnson as the only Bill to have 3 straight 1,000-plus yard receiving seasons with the franchise. Diggs' touchdown catch on Sunday marked his 26th receiving touchdown from Josh Allen, which ranks 2nd in team history among quarterback-wide receiver tandems, trailing only, as you may expect, Jim Kelly and Andre Reed, who had 65 touchdowns as a tandem. Also, Diggs moved into 8th all-time in franchise history with his 26th receiving touchdown, passing Pete Metzelar's, which I know John is loving the reference, and Peerless Price as well, who had 25 touchdowns each receiving for the Buffalo Bills. Now, we mentioned the running game. The Buffalo Bills hit the ground running on Sunday. Pun intended, I guess. I'm not really sure. They had 33 total team carries for 171 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Now, running back Devin Singletary had 18 carries for 86 yards. Another great day for him. 4.8 yards per carry with 1 touchdown. He had 2 receptions on 2 targets for 11 yards. The one surprise here on Sunday, running back James Cook, 11 carries for 86 yards at 7.8 yards per carry. He had no catches on 2 targets on only 16 snaps, though. He played 25.8% of the total offensive plays. He looked incredibly comfortable. He had second-level burst and elusiveness. Again, if Cook's confidence continues to build, he will be a very big weapon for the Buffalo Bills in the second half of the season. Running back Nyheim Hines, recently acquired Nyheim Hines, also had some sort of effectiveness for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. While he had 1 rush for -8 yards and no catches on 1 target, a ball that was grossly overthrown in terms of height. Hines' value Sunday came on special teams. He had 3 kick returns at an average of 25.3 yards per return and 2 punt returns at an average of 18.5 yards per return. Also, Sunday marks the first time Buffalo had multiple running backs with 85-plus yards in the same game since Christmas Eve 2016 versus Miami, when LaShawn McCoy had 128 yards and Mike Gillislee had 91 yards. Now, the man of the hour on Sunday, Tyler Bass. He was 1 for 1 on PATs and 6 for 6 on field goals. He made field goals of 42 yards, 36 yards, 56 yards, 49 yards, 28 yards, and 39 yards. A career-high 19 points scored on Sunday. The 6 field goals tie a team record set by Tyler Bass on October 25th, 2020 at the New York Jets, and Steve Christie, who did the same thing October 20th, 1996, also at the New York Jets. Very strange how that works out. Bass now has 8 career 50-plus yard field goals. It's 5th most in franchise history, trailing Steven Hauschka, who had 11, Ryan Lindell with 12, Steve Christie with 13, and Dan Carpenter with 14. Now, Bass's 369 points in his NFL career are tied for 8th all-time on the Bills scoring list, passing John Leopold. He is tracking down 7th place. It's going to be a little bit. 7th place, 420 points, is O.J. Simpson. Now, Tyler Bass is 2nd all-time in franchise history, averaging 8.6 points scored per game, but there's got to be some sort of way to maneuver this statistic to be good for Tyler Bass, because the only person ahead of him is running back Antonio Williams, who scored 12 points in his only game with Buffalo, so he has 12 points scored per game, which is the franchise record, I guess. Bass is also only the 3rd player, since 1950 with 369-plus points in his first 43 regular season games, joining Harrison Butker, who had 411, and Will Lutz, who had 382. Bass leads the NFL with 93 points scored in 2022, and since entering the NFL in 2020, Bass is ranked 2nd in points scored, 369, and 7th in field goals made with 77. Now, your no-shit Sherlock moment of the day. The observation on Sunday is that The ball is just exploding off of Tyler Bass's foot. It feels like he could hit a field goal from anywhere on the field, and it's absolutely fantastic to watch. Now, moving on to our second of the three big things here, wrapping up the defense, linebacker Matt Milano had 12 total tackles, 8 solo tackles, and 1 sack, his 10th of his career, 3 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hit, and 1 fumble recovery, which was his first since September 26th, 2021 versus Washington. Now, Milano continues to be the heart and soul of this Buffalo defense, no matter, at least for the front half. I mean, I feel like he's like the captain of the whole defense, but then you've got Milano on the front half, Jordan Poyer on the back half, and that team is set to go. And really, in Von Miller in the trenches, and you're good to go from there. It's crazy how they have such good talent at every single position that can kind of lead the way. Linebacker Tyrell Dodson did struggle in coverage, but he had a team-high 13 total tackles and 9 solo tackles, starting for injured linebacker Tremaine Edmonds. Excuse me. Defensive tackle Ed Oliver had 5 tackles, 3 solo, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 quarterback hit. Oliver was an absolute force in the running game on Sunday, and his wonderful horse riding celebration always gets a cheap pop from me because it's absolutely hilarious. Also, defensive tackle Daquan Jones recorded Buffalo's first blocked field goal since Halloween 2021 versus the Miami Dolphins. And Buffalo, one of the big things going into the game on Sunday, no red zone turnovers, no picks for Josh Allen, and get off the field on third down. Starting off the game, they kind of struggled, but Buffalo ultimately held Cleveland to 36% on third down. That's 4 for 11, so a very good sign from a Bills defense that seems to struggle getting off the field on third down. Now, our third of the three big things before we head to a commercial break and get joined by a very special guest whom you already know is coming. For Buffalo, we're going to jump a little deeper into the win here. This was very much a get-right game for the Buffalo Bills, with all the distractions of the snowstorm, of not being able to practice, of who's going to play, who's sick, who's healthy, who's injured, who's not. Mixed in with the lack of in-person practice, as mentioned, the challenges were all there. Buffalo had all the excuses in the world to not do good on Sunday, and they still were able to pull out and get the victory. They did start the game slow. The offensive looked sluggish, but definitely it was a slow burn on Sunday. The offense struggled to score touchdowns, but they stopped trying to force the ball when driving, which was very good to see. I know Sean McDermott mentioned something during the week about how Josh always wants to be Superman, and they're trying to stop him from doing that because it's causing him to make mistakes. But between you and I think the issue is more with the play calling than with the play making. But we'll see how the conservative mindset continues against Detroit, if it does. Also, while touchdowns weren't scored, a big thing here too. Buffalo still managed to hold on to a halftime lead for the first time in the last 3 games, and they also scored on all 5 second-half possessions. Another big thing too, Buffalo held Cleveland to 80 total rushing yards on 26 carries. Coming into the game, Nick Chubb, an absolute monster, Cleveland running back. He had 14 carries for 19 yards. That's 1.4 yards per carry. Also, Buffalo has a plus 107 point differential, the 4th highest through 10 games in franchise history. And per @Marcus_Mosier on Twitter. Yes, Twitter is still alive, for better or for worse. The Buffalo Bills, plus 301, are the only team that has a better point differential than the Cowboys, plus 256 since the start of the 2021 season. Also, last fun stat before we throw it to commercial here. Per @BillsVHS, a great follow on Twitter, Buffalo's regular season records by home stadiums at the Rock Pile, they were 38, 49, and 4. At Highmark Stadium, they're 222 and 160. At the Sky Dome, it's still the Sky Dome to me, damn it. Rogers Center be damned. 1-5. And at Ford Field, they're now 2-0 as the home team. With that being said, I'm done droning on about the Buffalo Bills, and I'm sure you've had your fill of stats. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here on Trust the Podcast. We'll be back with more. We'll be back with a special guest. You know who it is, the man himself, John Cimino, right here on Trust the Podcast on the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And we're back from commercial break here on Trust the Podcast. As promised, special guest joining us, the normal co-host. He is Twitterless, but also lurking on Twitter. If you want to tweet at him, he's not going to respond, but it's @IamJCMoney. John, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to the podcast in a weird spot.
Thanks for holding down the fort the first half of the podcast. Yeah, I'm no longer on. I'm only on Twitter as far as saving my username. But you can find me on Facebook @IamJCMoney. I'm very active on there if you need to connect with me socially. But yeah, I'm taking a Twitter break. It's quite the shit show there, and I have no interest in even logging in. But you can at me there too at some point. I'm sure I'll find it.
To break down the fourth wall very quickly, I text John on Sunday and said, hey, what time this week should we be able to podcast? You know, we talked about, well, let's do Friday night. Friday nights are good. And I said, cool. And then I had that moment, that moment from Home Alone where the mom screams, Kevin. That was me, because I'm like, wait a second. The Bills play Thursday and they played Sunday. So John was like, well, I've got Tuesday night and I've got Friday night. And I was like, okay, well, how about this? We'll do Tuesday night for the one, Friday night for the other. And that's why today is kind of so jumbled with the podcast here, because again, it's Thanksgiving week. There's so much going on. My breaking down the fourth wall for me, John, my babysitter is sick and in the hospital. So my week off of, she's got something stuck in her. Yeah, she's got something stuck in her gut. I believe she's going to be okay, but again, she's on the mend. So like my week off of having all this stuff, like I'm going to do, XYZ 1, 2, 3, get the podcast done, get my tires put on my car, get a haircut, be ready for Thanksgiving, all this stuff. And I am hanging out with my daughter instead, which I'll take. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I'm having a great time. But, when I'm watching it's not even watching, it's hanging out with my daughter, because I don't feel like I'm a babysitter. I'm her dad.
Well, it's because you still have the new kid smell to it yet. Give it a few years.
I get it like an hour and a half to 2 hours a day while my wife is working to get stuff done. So it's like, okay, now all of my stuff is crammed into those 2 hours. And it's like, I'm cleaning the house, I'm vacuuming, I'm doing laundry, I'm getting lunch ready for the baby, eating lunch myself and taking a shower, all that. And then by the time I'm done, she's awake. So I'm like, okay, cool. So,
there you go.
Long story short, I appreciate you giving me some of your Wednesday evening. Cause again, I don't even know what day of the week it is.
I have no idea either. And honestly, with the holiday tomorrow and, the, I guess, de facto holiday of Black Friday afterward, I'm not working that day. But it's like we have no earthly idea where anything is right now.
Yeah.
And you got to figure, I wonder how the Buffalo Bills themselves are feeling, having the tumultuous week that they had with the snow. I know you covered that earlier in the podcast, but
what did you think about that storm, by the way, though?
It was a pretty nasty storm. I will say, though, to see the good neighbors in Buffalo helping out the team in the manner that they did, that was pretty awesome to see.
The one thing I didn't mention earlier in the podcast that I think you'd get a kick at is that they said on the broadcast that Devin Singletary had to walk a quarter mile to get to where he needed to go to leave. And because the snow was so high, John, he's 5'7", the snow was at his waist. But the guys in the broadcast were like, yeah, I think it was probably a little higher, and he just doesn't want to tell us because he's embarrassed.
That's foul. I'm only 5'6", so he's taller than me. I can't say anything.
It is kind of funny. I mean, hey, real quick, before we talk about our look ahead here, John, we got to get it from you. It's episode 118.
Episode 118, peoples.
Now it feels like I trust the podcast.
It has to.
So now at this point, John, I took, starting in the start of the season, I took the piss. I made an injury news and our look ahead. And full disclosure, it's now literally become its own podcast in itself. We could literally spend 30 minutes talking on injuries alone. So I'm just going to run through them quickly, and then we can talk about Thursday afternoon's game. So first off, earlier in the week, wide receiver Jake Kumaro placed on the IR with an ankle injury. This allows Buffalo to claim old friend linebacker A.J. Klein off waivers from the Chicago Bears. Now get this, John. Follow this path with me. There will be a test at the end. If A.J. Klein suits up, which he likely will, this organization, this coaching staff really likes him. It'll be the third time he'll play for a team, or he'll be the third time he plays in the fourth organization he plays for this season, or is employed
the third
by.
Team will play for and fourth organization for him this season is how you have it worded.
The fourth organization is that he'll be under contract with, because again, I'm going to run it down here. So, Buffalo cut AJ Klein March 8th, 2022. He was a cap. It was a salary cap thing where they saved more money and they were able to cut his cap and they got extra cash back. He's gone. October 3rd, no surprise, the New York Giants signed Klein to the practice squad. October 6th, Baltimore then signs Klein off of the practice squad of the Giants onto their active roster. And then on October 31st, the Bears acquired A.J. Klein as part of a deal for Roquan Smith. And then on November 16th, Chicago waived Klein. On November 17th, Buffalo then claimed AJ Klein, and it's honestly looking like, because we'll talk about this on the next point here, that the Buffalo Bills need a linebacker, because Tyrell Dodson struggled in coverage last week against the Detroit Lions. And AJ Klein, well, yes, he does struggle. He is as plug and play as they come, because when Tremaine Edmonds or Matt Milano were hurt last year, AJ Klein was the guy who stepped up and normally did a halfway decent job in spot duty. So one hell of a year so far for AJ Klein. I'm sure when he signed with the Giants, or when he got cut from the Bills even in March, nobody could have expected this whirlwind of a tour for him.
And in under 2 months as well, the tour has been quite event filled. I'm sure at that point in time, because if I'm reading your notes correctly, when he was cut on March, I mean, that nobody talked to him or touched him for several months. He might have even thought his career was over. And then to go from that to New York by way of New Jersey, Baltimore, Chicago, and now back to Buffalo again.
Not to mention who I almost thought it was like a misprint. Nothing against AJ Klein, but you think to yourself, you're like, Roquan Smith, that's a pretty big deal. AJ Klein just gets thrown in because obviously I would presume that the Bears are like, well, we need a linebacker because we're trading a linebacker, but it was just still odd to me. But again, the world works in mysterious ways.
It works in mysterious ways, and Ryan, that's why they play the game.
I was literally going to say that the next line, so I'm glad that you grabbed that. Cool. So speaking of linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds missed the game again with a groin/heel injury. He got hurt in last week's game, or he got hurt 2 weeks ago now at this point. He didn't practice at all last week. He missed the walkthrough on Monday. So real quick too, when I say practice all week this week, Monday was a walkthrough, Tuesday was a practice, Wednesday was a practice. Tremaine Edmonds didn't practice at all this week. He was ruled out Wednesday morning by Sean McDermott in his weekly radio spot with WGR. Cornerback Tre'Davious White missed the game. The update this week, it goes from he's not in a position where he's ready to play to now we're taking it one day at a time. Not sure if he's going to play on Thursday, but crazier things have happened. Cornerback Kyer Elam missed this game with an ankle injury. He was a full participant in practice last Thursday, marked as questionable. Last Friday, Buffalo did not conduct practice because of the storm. And then this week, he was a full participant, so that's looking very good for his. I would presume maybe he'll come off the injury report if they believe he's going to play, but if he's a full participant, he's good to go. Defensive end Greg Russo again has a high ankle sprain. He didn't practice all last week or this week. He was ruled out Wednesday morning. No surprise there. Defensive end AJ Epinesa left the game with an ankle injury. Post game, he was spotted in a walking boot. He didn't practice Monday, Tuesday. McDermott said Wednesday morning he is doubtful for the game. Again, likely going to be out for a little while, I would presume. The interesting one for me, center Mitch Morse. He popped on the injury report with an elbow and an ankle injury. Post game, spotted in a walking boot. He didn't practice Monday or Tuesday. McDermott said he'll be questionable on his Wednesday morning radio hit. But still, that could be a big thing for the Bills because we've seen in recent games, John, that the center quarterback exchange has been a little testy as of late, which it normally isn't because Mitch Morse is really good at his job. But I guess Ryan Bates said that he'll be the guy at center if Morse can't play. And then another guy, again, we can't, the team just can't catch a break. Offensive lineman David Quessenberry had an ankle injury in the game, late in the game. He was spotted in a walking boot post game, limited both Monday and Tuesday. I'm presuming he should play, but there's so much going on.
It's a lot. That's a lot of injuries. And yeah, to your point about, can't catch a break there, even though they're still winning, or at least, they won last game against Cleveland. It's not necessarily hard to say. That's kind of been a major storyline for this franchise, whom going in, you were thinking this, they could easily run the table. And I would think at a very healthy Buffalo Bills team without all of these injuries certainly would have beaten the Jets and perhaps and the week before as well, would have won that game too. Whether or not they're able to rebound, continue this winning in spite of these injuries it's going to be interesting to see. To the point about the center, Mitch Morse there, though, I think a very underrated thing that people don't take into account is the relationship between the center and the quarterback. That is, when it's very cohesive, that offensive line, regardless of the situation, will work, and everything will work. Everything will work fluidly. I saw this story. I can't remember if it was on ESPN or somewhere else, that was talking about a center and the quarterback, and the quarterback was like, we are in perfect sync. Like, I was unsure of a play or whatever, and as I was making my snap counts, he didn't actually snap because he heard a pitch in my voice that threw it off. It was either I saw it there or maybe I heard you say that. I'm not sure, but I know I heard it in the past week. That's a very important dynamic to have. And with Mitch Morse out, ankle injury, elbow injury, the possibility of a new center, and what could that do to Josh Allen, who himself is sporting an injury and working through it? What could that do for that dynamic?
So, like I said, Morse is questionable, but it's a short week and he hasn't practiced. So, I mean, let's just be logical here. I'd be surprised to see him suit up on Thursday.
And this is one of those, and I'll look at this game. I know we're in the look ahead portion and we haven't quite touched up on the actuals of tomorrow's game, but I would be a little more worried about Detroit their 4-6 record. They may have a 4-6 record in a very weak NFC, in a very weak and or weird NFC North. But this team can play. They can play offense. They could put up the points. It's their defense that has always had the question mark all season. And I've said if the Detroit Lions had a competent defense, they would be very, very, very difficult to beat.
I mean, they're better than they were last year, and that's already saying a lot because they were not that great last year. Or it's saying a lot that they've improved so much, I guess. I'm just trying to look at their stats as I'm talking to you. I'm sorry. The other thing I wanted to point out too, that kind of a little nugget that dropped from Joe Buscaglia of The Athletic here on Wednesday morning, is that Micah Hyde is leaving the door open to return this season, which we thought was a foregone conclusion that he would be out till next year. But Joe Buscaglia points out that ahead of the Bills game against the Browns on Sunday, Hyde was seen getting in some work in with other inactive players under the guidance of the strength and conditioning staff. The Bills' lone practice of the week, Hyde was then going through some running drills with injured members of the roster. After the practice, Hyde said he had been cleared to run, quote, a little bit, and he's taking it one day at a time. But he left the door open to the idea of possibly returning later this season. He didn't shut the door like it was when he was put on the IR. So that's interesting. That, I mean, it sounds crazy, but that would be absolutely huge for the Buffalo Bills if Micah Hyde was able to return at any point in time this season. But that's just a little thing to put in the back of your head for down the road here. But still,
for sure,
wow, that would be huge.
And it would be, I mean, much needed for that defense. Whom they're feeling the losses, all of these losses. They're feeling his loss especially. So that would be a very, very big boost, I think, not just on the field, but morale-wise as well for that defense.
Absolutely. I 100% agree that back end being Hyde and Poor. And that's another thing, too, I want to point out since we're chatting now. And I'm not just talking to myself on the podcast like I was prior to the commercial. Earlier this year, I was definitely on the don't repay or don't re-sign, don't pay Jordan Poyer. But while DeMar Hamlin has stepped up, other players have stepped up in Poyer's injury absences and Micah Hyde's absence. I really think that Jordan Poyer has played himself into the contract extension territory because of how valuable he is to this defense as a whole. I mean, if the price is right and the ticket's good, you got to make that move because he is incredibly important for this defense. And it has shown this season when they don't play well and he's not on the field, they miss his presence. Because I mean, there was a play last week. I can't remember which. Brian Baldinger tweeted it out that on the screen to David Njoku that Jordan Poyer blew up for a loss of 4. They had all of the Bills going to the left. So if Poyer had done the same thing, it would have been an easy, 30, 40-yard touchdown. But Poyer knew his assignment was the tight end. Once Poyer realized the ball's going to him, it's a screen, he came in and absolutely laid the hit stick on David Njoku and dropped him for a loss of 4. Whereas we've seen with other Bills safeties and other Bills secondary players this season, the discipline might not be there, or the knowledge might not be there to go, this is my guy, I'm sticking with my guy, I'm not falling for it. I know this is my guy. I'm staying here. Whatever happens, happens. And it was a great play. If you get the chance to check it out, go check out Brian Baldinger's Twitter. He does a lot of great breakdowns, but that was a very good breakdown to see. And
absolutely,
it kind of raises your eyebrows.
I know this is Trust the Podcast, and we're talking Buffalo Bills stuff, but breaking news across the BLTD Sports Wire here. It is confirmed from Adam Schefter that during a team meeting minutes ago, Jets players were just informed that Zach Wilson is not starting Sunday's game versus the Chicago Bears. Wilson went 5-2 as the Jets starting quarterback this season. Those 2 losses both came against the Patriots when the Jets offense scored just 1 touchdown in 2 games. So per ESPN's Adam Schefter across the BLTD Sports Wire, Zach Wilson has been benched.
Yeah, that's
now back to Trust the Podcast.
That's a very big deal. But yes, I agree. Week 12, Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions, Thursday, November 24th at 12:30 p.m. on CBS. John, it's the third Thanksgiving meeting between the Bills and the Lions, the first since 1994. Now, Detroit 4-6. That record doesn't look super sexy, but considering where they've come from last season to this season, also, they're second in the NFC North. And, oh, by the way, no big deal, 3 straight victories. Now, quarterback Jared Goff has 2,442 passing yards. That's 10th in the league. 15 passing touchdowns, tied for 9th. He has 7 interceptions and a QBR of 55.5, which is 13th, just about middle of the road. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown has 56 receptions. That's 10th in the league on 78 targets. 18th in the league, 594 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Another big week as well for the Bills run defense. Jamal Williams, running back, 159 rushing attempts this year. That's 6th in the league, 668 rushing yards. That's 13th in the league, and 12 touchdowns, leading the league in that category. Now, last week against the Giants, a victory for the Detroit Lions, as mentioned, 17 attempts for 64 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. What a day for Jamal Williams. And he has stepped up in the absence of DeAndre Swift to the point where DeAndre Swift is more of a RB2 now for the Detroit Lions, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, indeed. Very crazy. Very crazy. I will say, though, again, don't sleep on these Detroit Lions. They are tougher than their record indicates. Their defense, though, from everything that I've been able to see, has been their weak spot. So the Buffalo Bills need to exploit all of the weaknesses there. Despite all of their weaknesses in the offense with injuries and everything, I think they could pull through here. I'm going to go ahead and give my prediction and side with 82.7% of ESPN's matchup predictor. The folks that took the survey, they believe Buffalo wins. I would agree with them. I do feel like it's going to be a doggone close game and a high scoring one at that. I'm going to go 34-28 Buffalo.
The Detroit Lions are currently, 8th in the league at 25 points per game scored offensively. Defensively, they are dead last. 28.2 points per game allowed. Now, it all really depends on how the Buffalo Bills can handle Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Detroit Lions no longer have TJ Hawkinson. Saw him 2 weeks ago against the Vikings. So I mean, I would have to think it's going to very much be like a pass heavy kind of game. Again, the Lions allow 427.3 yards per game. So their run defense looks like it can be gashed. Their pass offense looks like it can be, or pass defense looks like it can be gashed. I mean, it's perfect, John. The Bills are 427.8 yards per game offensively. The Lions allow 427.3. So again, I think, like you said, John, it's going to be a high scoring game, but I think ultimately Buffalo wins because they're still looking for that statement victory. As we talked about earlier in the podcast, they struggled the first half against Cleveland, but were able to turn it around and kind of be smart. And Josh Allen was not trying to be Superman, and he was doing what he needed to do to win the game. and the run game was great. I think we're going to see more of the run game this week, especially a lot of James Cook, because he looked absolutely fantastic against the Browns last week. So I'm going to say 31-17 Buffalo.
Wow, only 17? Okay. All right, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, because the Bills,
I like a good close game. I like the idea of a good close game on Thanksgiving, a good high-scoring close game on Thanksgiving, because I'll be filled with all the fixins. I'll be drinking myself silly. Miller High Life, though, so not too silly.
So,
but I like the idea of a close game.
Here's the reason I say 17. It seems like a safe number. They allowed 10 week 1, 7 week 2, 21 on week 3, 20 on week 4, 3 week 5, 20 week 6, 17 week 8, 20 week 9, 33 against the Minnesota Vikings, and then 23. So it seems like a fair landing area. But again, right. the Bills defense may struggle early on because, again, it seems like if you're going to hit the Bills quick, you got to hit them in the mouth early on, because once the Bills make those adjustments, which they always do, win, loss, or indifferent, Buffalo Bills defense always makes those adjustments. So again, my thought is, maybe, like I said, 31-17. I think it'll be a very good day for Bills fans, but again, we will see how it plays out, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why they play the game.
Indeed. And you play to win the game. And I eat and watch the game.
We're in a stretch of games too where they've got Detroit, Thanksgiving, then Thursday Night Football in New England, and then Sunday they take on Sunday, December 11th, which, hey, December's already here, almost here. They take on the Jets at home and the Dolphins at home, which I would not be surprised. We talked about it, to see that Jets game flexed. The same thing with Miami the next week. Would not be surprised to see that be a Saturday night game, Miami and Buffalo, and then they take on the Bears, the Bengals, and the Patriots. So again, it's getting hot and heavy here. I mean, the Jets go all in on the playoffs by starting a different quarterback. Their schedule gets tough. They play the Bears, but then they've got the Vikings, the Bills, but then they kind of have a cupcake of the Lions, the Jaguars, Seahawks, and they take on the Dolphins. The Seahawks are good, don't get me wrong, but they have regressed.
For them, it's a very winnable schedule. So
it really is. And I honestly think that when it comes down to it, with how well the AFC East has played, again, we haven't talked playoffs yet, but I think I'm trying to wait till after Thanksgiving to bring it back. Plus the injuries took over our playoff segment because there are so many goddamn injuries, which we've talked about a million times.
No doubt.
But it really does seem like at least 3 of the teams in the AFC will make the playoffs.
Yes, I agree. And depending on how this Jets team, I don't want to say that I'm not confident on whether or not the Jets could make the playoffs, because their defense is a championship caliber defense. Their defense is vastly improved this year, and no one can doubt that. It's the turbulence in the offense that I'm concerned about, more or less. What this Zach Wilson thing now does Zach Wilson take this as, okay, I need that slice of humble pie? And do they go to Joe Flacco, who has experience, and there was a reason why Baltimore fans called him January Joe, do they go with Mike White, who, caught lightning in a bottle that one game and he's just really well liked around there? Or do they called up Chris Streveler? Could they bring him in and he channel in his CFL experience and help run that offense? I mean, that's really going to be the key there. But there was a playoff scenario, I think it was maybe a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago, that actually showed all 4 AFC East teams possible playoff berth for all 4 of them.
It's interesting because the next past Detroit, the next 3 weeks will decide the AFC East for the Buffalo Bills. There's no doubt about it. You play New England, New York, Miami. They're 0-2 against their own division. You got to win. Those 3 games are must wins for sure.
Yes.
Especially because the Jets schedule, kind of a cupcake. You look at the Dolphins schedule, they take on the Texans this week. Then they're at San Francisco, at the Chargers, at the Bills versus the Packers, Like that right there should be murderer's row for them. Because again, the Chargers are who, they are who we thought they were. They're good and then they're bad, and they're good and they're bad, but there's talent there for them to win games. The 49ers,
they can win on any given Sunday.
Yeah. The 49ers look unbelievable because now, what's his face? Their head coach, Shanahan, is back to being a mad scientist because he's got healthy running backs. He's got Jimmy Garoppolo playing amazing. He's got Christian McCaffrey. He's like a mad scientist. But Deebo Samuel, I mean, you saw that Monday Night Football game. He is making that team. That team is already fun to watch. You put Christian McCaffrey in there. Geez Louise, man. They are unreal. It's crazy how good that team is offensively. But it's, again, you just want to see the Bills be able to play home games in the playoffs if they do end up making it, which obviously they should, but I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. But at the end of the day, we all think it's going to ultimately come down to Buffalo, Kansas City. You just want to make sure that game isn't going to be in Kansas City. That's, for me, the end game here right now.
I'd like to think it would come down to Buffalo and Kansas City. But I'm call me crazy, but I'm starting to buy into this Miami Dolphins offense. Tyreek Hill showing he didn't necessarily need Patrick Mahomes to be the best receiver in football. Yeah. He's making Tua look like Patrick Mahomes in some instances, and that offense is pretty dynamic, and they got a pretty good vibe going there.
I just want to see what their defense does in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Can their defense, because again, we know if you outscore the team every time, you're going to win the game. Duh, we get that. But when it comes down to it, and you've got Von Miller on the field for 100% of the defensive snaps. You've got Tre'Davious White against you on defense playing 100% of the snaps. How's your offense going to respond? And how's your defense going to respond when, it's win or go home? It's not, hey, we'll play and move on. I mean, again, Tua, been great. The offense, been great. They've got a great thing, it looks like, in Jeff Wilson Jr. Tyreek Hill's great. Waddle's great. The defense has been good. But again, this is where you start to, take those rocks and the pressure, and then you start to make those diamonds, and you try to figure out exactly who's going to come from what. So
absolutely,
we'll have to do a bit more of a deeper dive coming up clearly, because, we see this is developing right in front of us, and things are starting to kind of spread out, and teams are starting to separate themselves. So we'll see how that all comes together for sure.
We're closing. We are closer to the end than the beginning, and that is, well, it's bad if you love football, but it's good if you love playoff football. So
absolutely.
Either way,
well, hey, John,
we're getting there.
I appreciate you jumping on, talking sports with me as always.
Yes, sir. Let's do it again next week, shall we?
Yeah. I'm already looking forward to it, because we get some extra time off. We get 2 weekends of Bills-less Sundays, which is not a bad thing, but like in terms of having some downtime, being able to get some stuff done, it's really
mini
great.
buy.
It's really, exactly. It's really, really great. John is at IMJC Money. We talked about that before. Again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. I appreciate you all listening to me talk and drone on for so long. That's the name of the game here on the Trust the Podcast. But I want to wish everybody a safe and happy Thanksgiving. If you do decide to go out on Black Friday, don't get in any fist fights, because John nor myself are willing to financially bail you out of prison. So
nope. But they'll play your podcast for you, maybe, if you're lucky.
Yeah, look at that. Would be pretty sweet. Yeah. I wonder if we get a listen per person in the jail or not. But
that'd be interesting.
Extra streams for broadcasting. But again, John, thanks for joining us, and have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
You as well, my friend.
I appreciate you, man. And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. As always, we are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
We'll catch you same time, same place in just a few days, most likely, to talk Bills and Lions. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving, and go Bills.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.